Good evening, YTPC. Big Casper here, coming to you from a secluded location in west central Ohio. So a little bit of housekeeping. I'm smoking this evening my Missouri Meerschaum from the Cobbett series, the Elf. Said, and in it I'm smoking a little bit of Shortcut to Mushrooms, a blend I enjoy very much. Said I'm coming to you tonight to do a VR to piping artist Steph. Steph, I just found your channel just really recently, so I realized this VR is coming to you at the last minute, but I just discovered you when I saw Mel Harris talking about a portrait that you did for him. And I actually went back then and watched you painting that portrait in, well, I guess it was in lapsed time, but you painted the whole thing in one video and we saw it. That's an amazing talent you have there. And it sounded like Mel was going to be quite thrilled to get that painting in his hands there. So congratulations on that. Congratulations on your birthday. Like I said, you're around our house, we have a rule. You can celebrate your birthday for the whole week or the whole month. So if you're in the middle of the celebration, I think your birthday is actually a little bit later this week. But congratulations on your birthday. And you asked some challenging questions, or some interesting questions. Like I said, I'm well, probably at least 20 years older than you are, but I don't really feel that old until I start pondering some of the questions you ask. And then I realize that, yeah, I have been around for quite some time. The first question you had us wanted to talk about was, how has the world changed in our lifetime? For me, that's quite a lot. I mean, I grew up on a small farm in rural Ohio. Like I said, entertainment-wise, video-wise, we had television, and not much of that. There were available in this area, in the area I grew up in, there were available basically two channels, NBC and CBS. So you could watch what was on NBC or you could watch what was on CBS. Now, there was an ABC available, but we couldn't afford a new television, and you had to have both UHF and VHF to view ABC, to view the third channel. So I grew up not even watching any channels with ABC, any shows on ABC. So there was just those two channels, and it said still, we watched television, but not that much. Television wasn't a big part of our life. We didn't watch many videos at all. I find I haven't changed a whole lot in that, because now, I've got, probably in excess of 300 channels on cable, and I've got, of course, the world of Netflix and Amazon Prime and other sources. So there's just an infinite variety of choices, but I find still, for the most part, there's nothing that I want to watch. So I don't watch much TV today. So I guess my life in that sense hasn't changed, but for most people, that's a great change in their life. I guess the other thing that impresses me is video games and how much that's a part of people's lives these days. I work as an embedded software engineer, and the group that I work with, the next oldest person next to me is like 32. So there's a big age gap there. And I find at work, most of the guys and the few ladies that I work with, they spend most of their day, when they're interacting with each other, talking about online video gaming. And these are all games that I have no interest in and no knowledge of. So it's hard for me to participate in those discussions. And also then, when they go home, apparently they get online and play each other in those online versions of some of those video games for several hours a night. And that's just, I guess, something that's difficult for me to comprehend. Now, my experience with video games started, I guess, in high school, and probably most of you do not remember the game Pong. Very simple game, you just had a paddle on each side of the screen and a ball that bounced back and forth. Now, the Pong at that time was only an arcade game, and there was no arcades within anywhere that I could get to. But myself and a couple friends, we found the schematics that were published for Pong. So the very first video game I ever played was Pong, where we went to Radio Shack and got the parts we needed, and we wired up a crude version of Pong. The ball wasn't actually a ball, it was more of a block, but we sort of enjoyed playing that. But video gaming has come quite a ways since then, to where, apparently for the life of a lot of people in their 20s and early 30s, that's what consumes their life, and that's hard for me to relate to, but that's been, a big change. Also, the fact I'm an embedded software engineer, and when I went to college, there weren't even degrees in software engineering, or at least that I was aware of. I studied as an electrical engineer and just became just truly in love when I first found out that these little microchips could read conditions in the real world and then control things in the real world and post data. And I realized from that very first moment I was doing that I didn't want to do anything else the rest of my life. So that's a lot of how I guess the world has changed. Like I said, I think for the most part it's still the same. I mean, kids may want to be involved in all those things, but really what they still need are their parents to be involved in their life, not over video games or cell phones. Cell phones are, again, something that was not around when I was growing up. I, was many years out of college before I had my first cell phone. So that was not part of my life growing up either. So, that's just a big change in the way the world works and the way, things happen around here. But still, I think the most important thing for parents to remember is their kids do not need the latest video game and the latest cell phone. They need their parents to sit down and talk with them and interact with them and just love and let them know that they are loved. That's very important. The other question she asked regarded favorite. Well, I'm going to answer these in a little bit different order. I think you asked for the quote first, but I'm going to first talk about my favorite book, and probably the answer you would expect me to give, and the one I really do believe in, is that, like I said, is the Bible. I mean, I early on, or just out of college, my undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, I was drawn to go to seminary, and there I spent 3 years studying the Bible in its original languages, the Old Testament in Hebrew and the New Testament in Greek, and to where I've got a master's degree in biblical languages, and so a large part of my life has been studying the Bible and reading the Bible, not just in the English translations available, but also in the original languages. So that is a book I dearly love. The answer beside that, because that's I guess the preachiest answer that I could give, but the second one is not much like, if you want an actual book that was written by a more contemporary person, my favorite book would be Desiring God by John Piper. That was just a book that really captured me when I first read it back in the mid-'80s. And I guess the reason it captured me, and the reason that I'm so drawn into that book, is it answered some questions that I had long pondered and didn't really have an answer for. A bonus here, one thing that drew me to in there, it talks about a book about a movie called Chariots of Fire, which is one of my favorite movies. But in the movie Chariots of Fire, one of the characters in there, actually a real life character, Eric Little, was a Scottish marathon. I think he won the marathon gold in, I want to say, the 400 meter or something like that. But the one quote that he gives in that book, which is one of my favorite quotes, is he says, "God made me fast, and it pleasures him when I run." Because something that was always curious to me was that in addition to reading God's word and meditating on the scriptures I found there, another experience that I found that drew me real close to God was I've just always loved to solve math problems. And I did not know why that, in any way, how solving a math problem related to worshiping God, until I read this book, Desiring God. And then I realized that's the way God made me. So God made me good at math and to enjoy math. And when I solve math problems, it pleasures God. Like I said, if you don't understand that, read the book, Desiring God by John Piper. It's a it's a very, like I said, it's a very good book, and it's helped me a lot in my development. And the famous quote from that book that probably is my all-time favorite quote then, it says, God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in him. So again, God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in him. So there you've got the quote in the book and the Chariots of Fire movie as a freebie in there. The other thing you asked about was our favorite song. Like I said, my favorite song requires a little bit of explanation. Like I said, I went to seminary. I was a church pastor in the early 80s. For about 5 years, I pastored small churches in a couple different places: Columbus, Ohio, Boston, Massachusetts, and Alexandria, Louisiana. I don't know, I slowly learned that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. I just got no joy from that, and it wasn't fulfilling to me. And it led me to a darker period in my life when, actually I called someone I knew from college, my engineering degree, and went to work, up here in Dayton, Ohio, as a software engineer, an embedded software engineer. And, for a while, my wife and I, even though we were both seminary graduates, we found ourselves not even going to church. Because basically when we'd go to church, we would be, we would run into people and situations that so reminded us of the pain that we felt when we were pastoring local churches, and it was just real difficult, and so we didn't go. Until one day we walked into a church, and they weren't doing, and this was a Baptist church, but they weren't doing hymns. They were doing contemporary worship music, led by a guitar and worship choruses. And when I first heard that first worship chorus, I was totally captured. Like I said, I was 35 years old. I had never touched a guitar in my life. I had played other instruments. I had played, mainly brass instruments in high school and in college. But I was just so captured by that style of music that, I went out to Guitar Center, bought a guitar, and taught myself to play. Basically to play the worship choruses. And the reason why was not to be able to play in public or to play for other people, was so that I could capture that same worship experience of the songs I was hearing in church, that I could just sit in my private worship time and play those songs and worship God. And so, like I said, I played and practiced hours a day. That was virtually all I did, was go to work and then come home and practice the guitar until I could play those worship choruses. And like I said, and that led me to, I played them well enough then that I was invited to play them in other small groups, and eventually even was leading, worship in church. But that was what captured me, and probably in that genre. I mean, my favorite song would be Chris Tomlin's "How Great Is Our God." It's just a very meaningful song to me, and like I said, I enjoy playing it. Well, that's a recap of those questions you've asked. Thank you for the opportunity to contemplate those and to do this video. I hope that meets the requirements that you set forth for your giveaway. Like I said, it's been great. You have a great channel. You have some great content there, and it's just interesting. Like I said, I'm still just amazed. I have no talent at all in painting or drawing or anything like that. I would be challenged to do a stick person drawing, but just to watch how you do that, and just how, and basically to see the picture of Mel come alive in front of our face was, on your video was just amazing. So Steph, thank you for the questions, and thank you for this opportunity, and I'll sign off now.